My name is Clara Hayes, and for as long as I can remember, I've been the outsider in my own family. You'd think blood would mean belonging, that being a daughter, a sister, would automatically grant you a place at the table. But in our home, love was a privilege, not a right. Growing up, my mother adored appearances more than affection. She believed in smiles for strangers, lies for comfort, and perfection for show. She'd host dinner parties with fine china we could never touch, and laugh at jokes that weren't funny, as long as someone important was watching. I wasn't like her, I never was. My older brother Ryan was the golden child, the one who could do no wrong. My younger sister Emily was the delicate flower, adored, spoiled, and always protected. And then there was me, too quiet, too plain, too different. My mother used to tell me I had the wrong kind of ambition. While Emily was practicing her pageant walk, I was reading finance books I borrowed from the library. While Ryan was preparing for college funded by our parents, I was working part-time after school to save up for one. It wasn't rebellion. It was survival. Dad tried to be fair in the early years. He used to sneak into my room late at night, after another one of Mom's cutting remarks, whispering, "Don't let her words sink in, Clara. You're stronger than you think." But even he grew quiet over time, crushed under Mom's dominance and her obsession with appearances. The final crack came when I was 16. I still remember it like it happened yesterday. The smell of burnt coffee, the echo of my mother's voice bouncing through the kitchen. "Why can't you be more like your sister? Look at you, always hiding behind books, wasting time on useless dreams. Do you even realize how embarrassing you are at family gatherings?" I didn't answer. I'd learned long ago that silence was safer than truth. She slammed her cup on the counter. "Don't you dare ignore me! You think you're better than us, don't you? I just want to build a life that's mine," I said quietly. Her laugh was sharp enough to cut glass. "Yours, sweetheart. You'll never have a life of your own. You'll end up begging your siblings for help one day." Dad didn't say a word that night. Neither did Ryan or Emily. They just looked at me with that same mix of pity and superiority that made my stomach twist. That was the night I decided to leave. I packed my few clothes, a torn notebook, and a handful of savings from my part-time job. No one tried to stop me. Mom stood by the door, arms crossed, and said the words that would fuel me for years. "Go ahead, Clara. But don't come back when the world proves me right." The world did prove her wrong, but it took time. The early years were brutal. I worked 3 jobs, waitress by morning, data clerk by day, and cleaner by night. There were nights I fell asleep on bus stops. Mornings I skipped breakfast to pay rent. But every hardship came with a whisper in my head. One day, they'll see what they threw away. I got a scholarship, then an internship, then a job at a growing tech startup. And from there, my life began to bloom. I climbed through ranks, learned everything I could, built connections, and when I finally had enough courage and savings, I started my own company. The first few months were chaos, missed sleep, rejection after rejection, investors who didn't take a young woman seriously. But I didn't break. I couldn't afford to. 3 years later, Clarity Technologies became one of the fastest-growing firms in the region. Our software was bought by international corporations. Magazines started calling me a self-made visionary. And yet, none of that success healed the wounds of the girl who once stood in her family's kitchen, being told she would fail. Success doesn't erase scars, it only changes who sees them. So when I received the email about an upcoming family reunion trip, hosted by my mother no less, I almost deleted it without reading. But something in me hesitated. Maybe curiosity. Maybe closure. They were flying to Paris for a family getaway, celebrating Ryan's new promotion and Emily's engagement. I wasn't invited directly, just copied in a group message out of politeness. But I happened to have a business meeting scheduled in Paris that same weekend. Fate, or maybe irony, was aligning the pieces. 2 weeks later, I stood at the airport, passport in hand, ticket tucked in my purse. The terminal buzzed with noise, announcements, laughter. And somewhere in that crowd I heard her laugh. I turned. There they were. My family. Perfectly dressed. Perfectly smiling. Ryan with his designer luggage. Emily in her pastel coat. And my mother. Radiant as ever. Looking every bit the socialite she always wanted to be. For a moment, I stood frozen. Years had passed, yet my heart still reacted the same way. Quick, uneven, uncertain. They hadn't seen me yet. Part of me wanted to walk away quietly. Another part, the braver one, whispered, "No, not this time." I took a slow breath and began walking toward them. My mother's eyes met mine first. Surprise flickered for a split second before it hardened into disdain. Her lips curled into a thin smile, sharp and fake. "Well," she said loudly, loud enough for the surrounding crowd to hear, "if it isn't our little runaway." Ryan chuckled under his breath. Emily looked away. And that same sting, that old, familiar pain, burned deep inside me. I forced a polite smile. "Hello, Mom. It's been a while." She looked me up and down, taking in my simple clothes, my lack of flashy luggage. Her voice dripped with venom as she said, "Did you come to see us off?" How sweet. She only came to watch us leave. The people nearby laughed softly, assuming it was a joke. But I knew better. Every word she spoke was designed to wound. I stood there silent, my heart pounding but my face calm. Because what she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that life was about to flip the script in a way none of them could imagine. And the next few minutes would change everything. The air around me felt heavy, not from heat or noise, but from shame. Every glance, every whispered giggle from the nearby passengers cut deeper than I wanted to admit. It was happening again, the same pattern, the same public humiliation wrapped in my mother's polished cruelty. She only came to watch us leave, she'd said. Like I was some stray cat, too poor to belong, too forgotten to matter. I forced myself to breathe evenly. My instinct screamed to walk away, to retreat before my dignity fractured again, but I didn't move, because I wasn't that powerless girl anymore. Mom's laughter echoed in my head, crisp and rehearsed. "Clara, honestly, I didn't think you'd show your face here. Are you flying economy?" Her words were light but laced with venom, the kind that hides behind fake smiles. Emily giggled beside her, glancing at Ryan as if seeking approval. Ryan smirked. "Maybe she's here to wave goodbye, Mom. You know Clara, always a spectator, never the star." The old me would have swallowed that humiliation. The new me just smiled. "That's right," I said quietly, my voice steady, "but I think the show's about to start." They blinked, confused. Before anyone could respond, I heard footsteps. Firm, hurried, purposeful, behind me. "Excuse me, ma'am?" I turned. 2 airport staff members, dressed in crisp uniforms, were rushing toward me with polite smiles. The taller one spoke first. "Apologies for the delay, Ms. Hayes. We've just been informed your private jet is fully fueled and the red carpet is rolled out. The crew is ready whenever you are." For a moment I couldn't breathe. Not because of what they said, but because of the silence that followed. The laughter stopped. Conversations around us froze mid-sentence. The sound of luggage wheels, boarding announcements, even the faint background music. Everything seemed to fade into stunned quiet. I turned back toward my family. Mom's smile had vanished. Emily's phone slipped slightly in her hand. Ryan's eyebrows knitted together as if trying to make sense of what he'd just heard. My what?" My mother stammered. "Your private jet?" The staff nodded politely, still oblivious to the tension. "Yes, ma'am. Ms. Hayes' jet, flight CJ427, is ready for departure. We had a brief delay due to a catering confirmation, but everything's arranged now. The chauffeur is waiting at the private terminal." They looked at me with professional respect, completely unaware of the emotional earthquake happening behind them. I felt my mother's eyes on me, burning, searching for logic that didn't exist. "You have a jet?" she finally whispered. I smiled gently, not triumphantly, just enough to let calm pride replace years of pain. "Yes, Mother. Clarity Technologies owns 3, actually. One's mine." Ryan's jaw dropped slightly. "Wait, Clarity Technologies? As in—" "Yes," I interrupted softly. "As in the company that just partnered with Eurolink Systems last quarter. Maybe you've read about it? It was all over Forbes." Emily blinked rapidly. "That's your company?" I nodded, watching the color drain from their faces. It wasn't anger or revenge that filled me. It was peace, the kind that comes when truth no longer needs defending. The staff spoke again, kindly but with a hint of urgency. "If you'd like, Miss Hayes, we can escort you to the very important person entrance now. Security is holding the main gate to avoid a crowd." For a heartbeat, I hesitated, not because I was unsure, but because this was the moment I'd waited for without knowing it. The full circle moment, the kind you dream of when you're standing outside in the rain, wondering if you'll ever be enough. I turned back to my family. They looked small suddenly, not in stature but in spirit. Their confidence, once so blinding, now seemed hollow. I took a slow step closer. "You once told me I'd never have a life of my own," I said softly, "that I'd end up begging for help. But look at us now, Mom. I came to the airport the same as you, just not to watch you leave. I have somewhere else to be." Her lips parted, but no words came out. Her hand trembled slightly as she clutched her handbag tighter, as if holding on to control she no longer had. "Clara," she started, her voice barely audible. "We didn't know." "I know," I said, meeting her eyes. "You never cared to." The staff gestured toward the private terminal gate, where a small cart waited to take me to the jet. I gave them a polite nod. Then, turning back one last time, I looked at my family, the people who had once defined my worth by how invisible I was. "I hope you have a wonderful flight," I said gently. "Mine's just leaving sooner." As I walked away, whispers rippled through the crowd. Passengers who had laughed earlier now stared in silent awe. Someone murmured, "That's her. The tech CEO, right? The one on the magazine cover?" The sound followed me down the corridor like an echo of justice. I didn't need to look back to know what I'd see: my mother's face, pale, stunned, and stripped of arrogance, Ryan's jaw still slack, Emily's mascaraed eyes wide with disbelief. Each step toward the very important person terminal felt lighter, like shedding a lifetime of chains I didn't realize I'd been dragging. The automatic doors slid open, revealing a quieter, sleeker hallway with soft lighting and velvet seats. A uniformed chauffeur greeted me at the entrance. "Ms. Hayes, your luggage has been transferred. Would you like champagne before takeoff?" I smiled. "No, thank you. Peace will do." The driver grinned knowingly and led me toward the waiting car. Through the tinted glass, I caught one last glimpse of my family standing at the public gate, still frozen in silence. For the first time, I didn't feel bitterness, only a gentle ache of closure. Because in that moment, I realized something profound. I hadn't won against them. I'd simply risen without them. Silence. It was the kind of silence that says more than words ever could. Thick, heavy, stretching through every corner of that glass-walled terminal. Behind me, I could still feel their eyes, my family's disbelief clinging to the air like smoke. I didn't turn back. I didn't need to. For years, I had imagined moments like this. Imagined saying something dramatic, something that would make them regret every cruel word. But standing there now, walking toward the very important person lounge with airport staff leading the way, I realized I didn't need to say anything at all. My life had already spoken for me. The private terminal smelled faintly of jasmine and polished marble. The hum of quiet luxury, the kind that doesn't need to announce itself, filled the space. A woman in a tailored uniform approached with a warm smile. "Ms. Hayes, we're honored to have you. Your flight crew is ready for departure whenever you prefer. Would you like to review your Paris schedule first?" "Thank you," I said softly. "I'll review it on board." She nodded, bowing slightly before guiding me toward the exit that led to the runway. As we stepped outside, the view hit me. The sleek white jet glistening under the sunlight, the red carpet rolled neatly across the tarmac, and the crew standing in perfect formation beside it. A surreal calm washed over me. It wasn't pride that filled me. It was gratitude. Gratitude to the version of me who hadn't given up when the world turned its back. But before boarding, I heard hurried footsteps behind me. A voice I hadn't expected to hear again, trembling, unsure. "Clara, wait!" I turned. My mother was there, breathless, her heels clicking against the polished floor as she tried to catch up. Behind her, Ryan and Emily followed, their expressions caught between disbelief and guilt. "Mom," I said calmly, "you'll miss your flight." She stopped a few steps away, her perfect hair slightly disheveled now, her lipstick smudged from nervous biting. The arrogance that once defined her was gone, replaced by something I'd never seen before. Fragility. "Clara," she began, her voice cracking slightly. "Why didn't you tell us?" I let out a small, almost sad laugh. "Tell you? You made it clear you never wanted to hear from me. Remember?" Her eyes softened. We didn't mean—" "Yes, you did," I said gently, cutting her off. "And that's okay. Because your disbelief made me stronger." Ryan stepped forward, his usual confidence faltering. "Clara, you really built all this? You're the CEO of Clarity Technologies?" I nodded. "Yes. The same company your firm just applied to partner with last quarter." He blinked, stunned. "That proposal went straight to the executive board. We never knew." "I saw your name on the paperwork," I said, a faint smile touching my lips. "I didn't decline it out of spite, Ryan. I declined it because the numbers didn't make sense." Emily spoke next, her voice small. "We didn't know how successful you'd become." "That's the thing," I said quietly, looking at all three of them. You never cared to know. For a moment no one spoke. The only sound was the faint hum of the jet engines preparing for takeoff. Then my mother's voice broke the silence. "Clara, we were wrong. I was wrong." Her eyes glistened. "I shouldn't have treated you that way. I thought I was protecting you, pushing you to be realistic. But you built something extraordinary." I looked at her, really looked at her. The woman who had spent her whole life trying to look perfect now stood before me, cracked and unsure. A part of me wanted to forgive her on the spot. Another part, the child inside me, still ached too much to let go that easily. "Do you know what hurt the most?" I asked quietly. "It wasn't what you said, it was that you said it so easily, like my worth was disposable, like I was just background noise in a family that only applauded itself." Tears shimmered in her eyes. "I see that now. I do." I gave a small, sad smile. "You see it because I succeeded. But what if I hadn't?" Her lips parted, but no answer came. "Because we both knew the truth. If I had failed, they'd still be laughing." Ryan tried to break the tension. "Clara, we should talk. Maybe we can fix this. You could come with us, spend time—" "I can't," I interrupted softly. "My flight's waiting." Emily took a step forward. "To Paris?" I nodded. "For business. Clarity Technologies is launching our European headquarters this week." Ryan whistled under his breath. "That's huge." "Yeah," I said. "It is." My mother reached for my hand, hesitating before touching it. "Clara, please. Let's at least have dinner when you return. I want to make things right." I met her gaze, then gently pulled my hand away. "You can't rewrite the past, Mom. You can only learn from it." Her face fell. "So this is goodbye?" I thought about it, about all the years I'd wanted her love, about the nights I wished she'd call, about the little girl who once begged for approval. And then I said quietly, "No, it's closure." With that, I turned and began walking toward the jet. The crew saluted politely as I approached. The red carpet shimmered beneath my heels, the soft wind brushing through my hair. At the door, I paused. I looked back one last time. At the woman who birthed me but never really saw me. At the siblings who laughed when I was small but now stood in stunned silence. They looked lost. And for once I didn't feel small. I felt free. I stepped into the jet's cabin, the quiet hum of luxury wrapping around me. The interior smelled faintly of leather and lavender. My assistant, Nina, looked up from her tablet with a grin. "Everything ready, boss?" she asked. "Yes," I said, taking my seat. "Everything's perfect." She glanced out the window toward the terminal. "Was that your family?" I followed her gaze. They were still there, tiny, distant figures on the glass bridge. "Yes," I said softly. "That was my past." Nina smiled gently. "You okay?" I thought for a moment, then nodded. "Better than okay." The pilot's voice came over the intercom. "Miss Hayes, we're cleared for takeoff." As the engines roared to life, I fastened my seatbelt, feeling the vibration beneath my feet. The sound of freedom. Through the window I saw my mother raise a trembling hand, not to wave goodbye, but almost in apology. I didn't wave back, not out of anger, but because I had already forgiven her in silence. The jet began to move. The runway stretched ahead like a promise, and as we lifted into the sky, I whispered to myself, "Revenge isn't loud, it's quiet, it's peace, and it's finally mine." The world looked different from above. Clouds glowed gold under the rising sun, endless and soft, a horizon that stretched beyond regret, beyond pain, beyond the past. As the jet leveled in the sky, I closed my eyes and let the hum of the engines fill the silence. The seat beside me was empty, but I didn't feel alone. I felt whole. "Would you like something to drink, Ms. Hayes?" the flight attendant asked, gently. "Just tea," I replied. "Something calm." She smiled, understanding. "Of course." As she left, I gazed out the window, the soft light reflecting faintly against the glass. Somewhere far below, the airport faded into a memory. The same place where I once stood small and humiliated, now just a speck beneath the clouds. Nina sat across from me, her tablet in hand. "You want to review your Paris agenda?" "Later," I said. "Right now I just want to sit with this moment." She nodded, closing her screen. "It's a big one." "Yes," I said softly. "It is." Silence settled again, peaceful, not heavy. For years I'd imagined revenge as something fiery and loud, the moment I'd finally confront them and say everything I'd bottled up. But now that I'd lived it, I realized something unexpected. The sweetest revenge wasn't making them hurt. It was no longer needing them to understand, because I had moved on. And they were still standing at that gate, trapped in their old reflection of me. The tea arrived, steaming, fragrant with lavender and honey. I wrapped my hands around the cup, letting the warmth seep into my palms. "You know," I said quietly, half to myself, "when I left home, I used to think success would erase the pain, that money, status, all of it, would finally make them see me." Nina looked up, curious. "Did it?" I smiled faintly. "No, it just made me see them clearly." She nodded thoughtfully. "That's powerful." I took a sip of tea and let the calm fill me. "I realized something back there," I continued. "My mother spent her life chasing approval, from society, from friends, from anyone who looked important, and I spent my life chasing hers. We were both trapped in the same cycle, just on different sides of the glass." Nina leaned back. "So what breaks the cycle?" "Peace," I said simply. "Choosing to stop running after people who never learned how to see you." The jet glided smoothly through the clouds, sunlight spilling across the cabin. I reached into my bag and pulled out a small envelope, one I'd written before the trip but never meant to send. It was addressed to Mom. Inside, a single card with a short message. "Thank you for teaching me what not to become. I wish you peace, even if I had to find mine without you." I smiled softly and set it aside. "Send this to her," I told Nina. "Have flowers delivered with it. Lilies. She always loved lilies." Nina's expression softened. "You're kinder than I would be." "It's not kindness," I said. "It's closure." Hours later, Paris came into view, glittering, alive, full of movement and light. The city had always represented dreams to me, not because of its romance, but because it symbolized rebirth. I'd come here years ago as a student with one suitcase and a borrowed laptop. Now, I was arriving as the keynote speaker for a global tech summit. When we landed, cameras and staff were already waiting. As I stepped off the jet, flashbulbs popped, reporters called my name, and photographers angled for the perfect shot. For a moment, I froze, not from fear, but from realization. This was what standing in your power felt like. Not arrogance, not revenge. Just quiet confidence born from pain that didn't destroy you. "Ms. Hayes, can you tell us what inspires your success?" a journalist called out. I smiled softly. "Failure," I said, "and the people who thought I wouldn't rise from it." The crowd murmured in admiration. As I walked toward the car waiting for me, I thought again of my family, of that moment at the boarding gate when my mother's voice rang through the terminal, so sure of her power. She only came to watch us leave. Maybe once, that was true, but not anymore. Now, I was the one leaving, and this time they were the ones left behind. That night, in my Paris suite overlooking the Seine, I stood by the window with a glass of wine. The city lights shimmered below, endless and bright. I thought about calling them, telling my mother I forgave her, that I didn't hold on to hate, but I didn't. Some things are better left in silence. Forgiveness, I'd learned, wasn't about giving people another chance to hurt you. It was about freeing yourself from their hold on your heart. I whispered to the night, I forgive you, Mom, but I'm done needing you to love me. And just like that, a weight I'd carried for years finally lifted. A week later, my mother sent flowers. A small note came attached. I saw the news. I'm proud of you, Clara. I'm sorry it took me so long to see who you are. I smiled as I read it, not with triumph, but with peace. She'd finally seen me. Not as the disappointment she once mocked, but as the woman I became because of that pain. I placed the note beside my window and whispered, better late than never. Then I turned back to my desk, the skyline reflected in the glass, my reflection faint but strong. There was work to do, a world to build, and a life still unfolding. The past was no longer a wound. It was a story, one I'd survived, rewritten, and outgrown. Because the best revenge was never destruction. It was transformation. And as I looked at the stars beyond the city lights, I smiled and whispered the truth I'd earned. They laughed when I had nothing. Now I smile, because I have everything that truly matters. Peace, freedom, and wings no one can clip anymore.